course of its duty within the total exclusion zone,
There was no last kiss, 'cause I love you. Beautiful, I will love you. Always. Don't cry, I know you'll have a
there's beginning to be something
wonderful
unreal
life.
about the images of the Falklands War.
Don't cry,
It hardly seems possible
she'll
that war
always
happened
be
just a few short
the
months ago.
apple of my
But the political debate is
'cause I
already beginning.
love you.
Questions now are, how did Britain get involved? Should it have ever done so?
Beautiful, how I love
It just wouldn't have been possible in the immediate aftermath of a victory. They'll be the questions for a year ahead.
always, 'cause I love you.
A year ago, it would look incredible.
Beautiful, I will love you.
British Avenue in his house on the sea, and tear down by Union Jack by force of arms. control center monitors the state of the ship and the speed of their reactors.
Every time I think of you,
Tape 1.
I always catch my breath. And I'm still standing here, and you're miles away. And I'm wondering why you left. And there's a storm that's raging through my frozen heart tonight. I hear your name in certain circles, and it's always making me smile. I spend my time thinking about you, and it's almost driving me wild. And there's a heart that's breaking down this long distance line tonight. I ain't missing you at all since you've been gone away. I ain't missing you at all. No matter what I might say, there's a message in the wires, and I'm sending you the signal tonight. You don't know how desperate I've become, and it looks like I'm losing this fight. In your world, I have no meaning, though I'm trying not to understand. And it's my heart that's breaking down this long distance line tonight. I ain't missing you at all since you've been gone away. I ain't missing you at all. No matter what my friends say, there's a message I'm sending out, like a telegraph to your soul. If I can bridge the distance, stop this heartbreak over love. I ain't missing you at all since you've been gone away. I ain't missing you at all.
For a few hours of Macadar
I ain't missing you. I ain't missing you at all
Those of us who've not crossed the line before
since you've been
got
gone.
to them both.
I ain't missing you.
But first, we were liberally seared with flour and water tape. People were pulled in from all over the ship to pay homage to King Neptune.
When I am down, know I seem so weary. Troubles come, and my heart burdened be.
No escape was allowed.
Then I am still, wait here in the sun,
And flying was foolhardy.
until you come to sit a while. You raise me up so I can stand on mountains. You raise me up to walk on streets.
been attack coordinated with a Vulcan bomber flying 3,500 miles from Ascension Island. The Harriers would follow again after daybreak, and with the defensive alert, they were told that 3 of them could expect to be shot down. By dawn, the fleet's radar had tracked the Vulcan, codenamed Black Buck, across Stanley Airfield, and monitored the code word that its bomb had been dropped. It was time for the Harriers to join the offensive and take back the station.
You gave to me. to Marvin. This is the sound of my soul. This is the sound, always slipping from my hands. Sends a time of its own. Take your seaside arms and write the next line. Oh, I want the truth to be known. I know this much is true. I know this much is true. I bought a ticket to the world, but now I've come back again. Why do I find it hard to write the next line? Oh, I want the truth to be said.
There was substantial damage, and much of the runway was attacked. The craft was
If I could make a wish, I think I'd
starting that day
pass.
and almost every night afterwards. The Navy
Can't
itself
think
argued
of anything
the runway
I
for discomfort
need.
and disarray.
No cigarettes, no sleep, no light, no
The next day,
sound.
the Royal Navy continued the offensive, torpedoing the
Nothing
Argentine
to
cruiser
eat,
Falklands.
no books
The
to
details reached the South Coast, the
read.
same way all news circling
Making love with you has left me peaceful, warm and tight. What more could I ask? There's nothing left to be desired. Peace came upon me,
The Belgrano was hit by two
it
torpedoes prior to
leaves
leaving
me
one of Britain's nuclear submarines. 300
so sleep,
1,000 killed.
silent angel, go to
There was little floating in the
sleep.
task force, but concern for fellow sailors.
Sometimes all I need is the air that I breathe and to love you. All I need is the air that I breathe, yes, to love you. All I need is the air that I breathe.
On Hermes there was alarm and confusion. The attacking aircraft had been totally undetected until it struck. The ship swung away from the attack, whereas the cockpit sound started from the side, sending radar detectors into the air, confused the
Peace came upon me and it leaves me weak. So sleep, silent angel, go
submarines and
to
torpedoes were reported, but the
sleep.
helicopters couldn't find them. On the horizon was the sea smoke rising
All
from
I
one of the
need is the
torpedoes.
air that I breathe and to love you. All I
Ground
need
was
is
brought by
the
one of the
air that I
This ship was a
breathe,
plane
yes, to
agitator, all
love
power, all
you.
communication, all ability to fight the
All
flames
I
of the
need
light.
is the
They
air
needed firefighting
that I
equipment,
breathe.
casualties, weapons.
Sometimes all I need is the air that I breathe and to love you. All I need is the air that I breathe.
protective clothing. The attack had been too swift.
You are so beautiful to me. You are so beautiful to me. Can't you see?
20 men had died, all within minutes.
You're everything I hope for. You're everything I need.
On the same day, we lost the Sea Harrier. It never came back from a bombing mission.
You are so beautiful
It was time to start taking in some of the lessons.
to me.
Revision of the way we think in terms of closing up action stations in the Royal of Sheffield. Order taken if the weak detect enemy contact within 50 miles closing or
You
air contact
are
or
so beautiful
approximately intercept missile range. We will go on
to
its
me.
all contact
vast contingents of the SAS were slipping ashore to spy out the land. They discovered a major airbase at Pebble Island and launched an airborne commando raid against it, backed by a thunderous naval bombardment. The land battle had begun. Forces had been ashore spying out the land for 3 weeks before the British landed here at San Carlos. They were able to tell the British commander that there was no Argentine garrison here to oppose them. The other advantage of San Carlos was the deep water anchorage surrounded by a ridge of hills, which made air attacks difficult, but as we soon found out, not impossible. The Argentine Air Force was able to approach behind the ridge of hills without being detected by radar. It was an advantage they exploited to the full. The air attacks began an hour after dawn, and they continued relentlessly.
So excuse me for kidding, but these things I do. You see, I've forgotten if they're green or they're blue. Anyway, the thing is, what I really mean. Yours are the sweetest eyes I've ever seen. And you can tell
Large white objects made an inviting target.
that this is your song. It may be quite simple, but now that it's done, I hope you don't mind. I hope you don't mind that I put down in words
HMS Plymouth assigned to protect only just dodged 2 bombs herself.
how wonderful life is while you're in the world.
But by attacking the warships, the Argentinians gave the supply ships time to unload and get the beachhead established. The first items ashore were the Rapier anti-aircraft missiles. By the end of the first day, they'd been set up, but they weren't yet effective. Delicate, precision equipment, it took time to settle and stabilize. Some idea of what the operator sees comes from this film of planes being shot down on the same day. It was taken through the sights of a frigate in the Falklands Sound.
As we're standing at your grave, in our hearts, in our minds, we pay our gratitude. We'll remember you.
The attacks come at terrifying speed. It needs slow motion to be sure what's happening.
Blowing in the wind for
Bombs being lost, a near miss.
as we remember who keeps our land free, who keeps our
HMS Arden
land
was hit.
free.
She
Just
sank.
one
32
day is
men
not
died.
enough. We won't mourn the loss when the stars come out tonight. Reveal the hero inside.
After that first day, the defences were reassessed. Machine guns were strapped along the ship's side. Even jets, when they died below the missiles, put themselves within range. The focus guns aboard HMS Plymouth claimed 2 planes. The gun crew, mostly 17 years old, soon had more battle experience than anyone else in the Navy. In the next major attack on the Sunday, HMS Antelope was struck. hole in each side. Assumed the bomb had gone through without exploding. Many ships were having such lucky escape. Then we realized the holes didn't match. There were 2 unexploded bombs on board. That evening, the bomb disposal experts worked to kill it. One of the bombs blew up. Helicopters probe the darkness for men in the water or on the deck. We could just see some of the ship's company moving about, trapped between the cold water and the fire. Either could kill. Antelope was the same type as Ardent. Neither survived the fire following a bomb going off. We were astonished that metal ships could burn with such fury, but she didn't die easily. At dawn, she was still smouldering, but mangled beyond salvation. That morning, someone remarked, "This is like the wrong end of Skittle Alley." Soon, it became Bomb Alley. HMS Antelope broke and sank. 2 more men were dead. Tuesday, Independence Day, Argentina launched another major airstrike. The British commanders had seriously underestimated the Argentine air force, committing its planes and its pilots with an almost reckless willingness. The helicopters ducked into the hillsides, using their colour as camouflage. But this time the main attack was against the fleet at sea. The container ship, Atlantic Conveyor, had joined up with the main task force before sailing on to San Carlos Bay with her cargo. Exocet, launched against the carriers, destroyed her instead. She'd been carrying helicopters, badly needed by the landing forces. It was a serious blow. 12 men dead. The same day, HMS Coventry, sister ship to the Sheffield, was bombed. Within minutes, she turned on her side and was going down. There was no hope of saving her. The survivors abandoned ship, and she sank within an hour. 19 dead. The Argentine planes were still being hacked out of the sky. What's the one in the background? One day it was our turn to be caught in a helicopter during an air raid.
Love was such an easy game to play. Now I need a place to hide away.
Two of the Skyhawks turned our way, and we thought they'd attack us. But they sped by 100 yards off, serving us not their guns, but our own, firing at them. By now the beachhead was established. 12,000 tons of stores, enough to keep the brigade going for a month, were on shore. They'd been unloaded by the Royal Fleet Auxiliary and the Merchant Navy. The men had worked on, despite the bombs dropping around, and sometimes through their ships, many crammed full of ammunition. They'd done their part. pressure from home to break out of the beachhead and seek a success. They found that success here on the battlefield at Goose Green. The Argentinians were dug in on this ridge, and they had a series of well-established defensive trenches running back towards the settlement. The British had to advance against them across bleak open country. Even now in midsummer, the wind howls across it with nothing to break its course. The job of taking the settlement was left to Sukara. They suffered from almost every disadvantage in the book. They were heavily outnumbered, but despite that they advanced under heavy fire, and they won magnificently. Small stone cairns had been set up to mark where each of them fell in the battle, including their commanding officer, Colonel H. Jones. Where the Argentinians died is marked by their possessions, which still lie strewn round about. Still it isn't clear how many Argentinians did die in the battle. At first it was estimated at 250. That now seems to be an exaggeration. 100 seems to be nearer the mark. Oddly enough, it was a battle which the British commander doubted was necessary. He had to be ordered to take Goose Green by his superiors in London. It turned out to be the right decision. Goose Green was the victory the British wanted. The Argentinians had been overwhelmed, not by numbers, but by courage and resolution. The British troops had, with a single action, established a reputation for winning. Refrigeration plant, dirty and ramshackle, it was no place to be operating. It was the best place to find.
As you can see, the conditions are somewhat ideal. The light is limited, the one gets more, it's somewhat generator outside. Food for that is in short supply, and the floors are not of the standard that you would expect to see even in the ground of the hospital back home. They're very grubby. But we're dealing with sick young men who've got good resistance to infection, and we simply need good surgery to help them survive later.
There were 2 unexploded bombs lodged in the ceiling. But with nowhere else to go, the surgeons stayed. They kept on operating even during the air raid. All the wounded got the same treatment, no matter their nationality. The other big problem was what to do with 1,400 unexpected prisoners. Once they'd laid down their arms, they had to be fed and housed and guarded. The British, short of men, tents and rations, were hard put to provide any of it. There were some Air Force men among them, but others, the technicians who'd be hard to replace, had been spirited away before the surrender. Helicopters by the Argentinians smashed before Stanley. To begin with, the captives were put into the sheep shearing tent and told to eat their own rations. When the helicopters became available, they were taken back to be loaded aboard ship, which was carrying them home. They were mostly young conscripts, who in the main seemed pleased to be out of the war. They'd had, it seemed, a raw deal from their officers. They'd been left very much to fend for themselves. They'd been begging or stealing food from the islanders, even though there'd been plenty available from their stores. They in charge of them. Their apprehension was obvious. In their minds, anything could happen. No matter what it said, they would move at the center. But they were treated precisely as the convention dictated. One at a time, they were stripped and searched. All their personal belongings, except their clothes, were taken away. Anything which might do harm was removed, even their bootlaces. Everything was catalogued, and they signed the list. The bags of their belongings would be returned when they were repatriated.
She helps me into my bed, and then I tell her, as I turn out the lights, I say, my darling, you were wonderful tonight.
The only labels that could be found in quantity were from the Canberra.
Oh, my darling,
The prisoners had arrived before they were inspected.
wonderful tonight.
It was the proper procedure, but demoralizing, dehumanizing. The people of Goose Green were glad to see the back of them. They'd swapped one army for another, and there was no doubt which they preferred.
Didn't know what day it was.
Every soldier was a celebrity.
I said hello, notice. You said goodbye too soon. Breezing through clouds, spinning yarns that were so
One thing wrong, it's going to be wicked. It's a marvelous village today to have
confess right here.
had this one battalion that's taken out so many of them.
The day of the surrender, General Moore, the new Land Forces commander, arrived and had his first meeting at sea with Admiral Woodward.
First of all, what we were after was a victory ashore for one of our groups of men, battalion or whatever, that was going to prove that our guys could really do it. And my goodness, they have today. And yesterday. They had that considerable fight yesterday, captured 100 or so prisoners, and took the first part and surrounded the others. And then, as a result of proving their quality and moral domination, frankly, I think that's probably the reason that the others have surrendered today.
The surrender ceremony had taken place on the recreation ground. There had been a speech and the singing of the national anthem, greeted with little enthusiasm by the conscripts. There seemed little identity of purpose between them and their officers. When the British came to bury their dead, 11 of the 17 were officers or engineers. The British way to take men to battle was to lead from the front. A tradition that Colonel Jones was following. He led his battalion from the front and died. From their first rough graves, the bodies of the British dead have now been brought here to a war cemetery at San Carlos. The wooden crosses which mark them are being removed to make way for headstones being shipped out from England. And local stone is being quarried to build a wall around it, and so create a tranquil enclosure in what will always remain a wild country. The victory at Goose Green had secured the British flank, but the British still had to face an enemy which every general feared: the weather. The climate was a crippling combination of cold and damp, something that would test their survival training to the limit. Already some men were beginning to suffer from trench foot, a sort of mild frostbite that would take them out of action for days or weeks. The Argentinians were relying on the mountains as a barrier. They stretched the full 50 miles, high and cold, from San Carlos to Port Stanley. There were no tracks. They'd never been needed before. The Argentinians assumed that the British would not attempt to come over the top in midwinter. But they miscalculated. That was the way the Marines and the Paras chose to go. Their packs weighed 50 to 60 pounds each. Around their waist they wore a webbing belt with survival equipment and ammunition, another 30 pounds. It took a fit man to carry that load. They couldn't rely on getting any help. They were going to have to walk every step of the way. And sometimes there weren't even enough helicopters to get their rations to them. So at the end of the day, the campaign was to depend on one thing above all else: the ability of the Marines and the Paras to walk to the battle and still be tough enough to fight it. Sent out in the QE2 had now reached the island and were disembarking. The Gurkhas, anxious for honour and medals, were eager to be moving forward. With their cookeries, the curved knives from the hall, sourced of many deaths, they were greatly feared by the Argentine defenders.
More on the front. What else? On the nose. And the left cheek. Cheek better than people. Correction.
They took over the defence of Goose Green, and under the command of their Gurkhali-speaking officers, mounted airborne patrols to round up any Argentine stragglers who'd fled after the battle. Ahead of us, the brigade headquarters was being set up in a barn. The maps were being marked with the disposition of the enemy. The plans for the final assault were being laid. The end could not be far off. The desperate need was to get men up to the front. They were being brought round by sea to Bluff Cove, just 12 miles from Stanley. Some were slipped ashore at night, others arrived with 2 support ships loaded with arms and ammunition. They anchored and began by unloading anti-aircraft defences. But luck went against them. The mountain mist which had obscured the Argentine observation post cleared that day, and the Argentine Air Force, dormant for nearly 10 days, struck a final blow.
Ease my troubles.
as the plane swept low over the ship, to Tristram and to Galahad. The anti-aircraft missiles were not yet effective. Both ships were hit. The Galahad was immediately in flames. Two companies of the Welsh Guard were still on board. The helicopters abandoned their task, queued up to join the perilous rescue.
Through all dangers, with you, right to the end, till my last breath is taken, I will carry you
tragedy which couldn't have been more ill-timed. The two brigades, now based at Field Inlet and Fitzroy, had advanced troops already exposed on Mount Kent, and more were committed to capturing the high ground overlooking Stanley itself, Mount Longdon, Two Sisters, and Tumbledown. The disaster had to be ignored. It was too late to fall back. The artillery opened the battle for the mountains. The armoured vehicles were to be a distraction. While they rolled along the flat ground on the flanks, the main advance went across the top. Two para, rested after the Battle of Goose Green, were being helicoptered up to join the rest of the Commando Brigade. Blooded by one battle, they were no less apprehensive about the next. But the quickest way out, perhaps at this stage the safest way, was through Port Stanley. You're going back after a few days off. Are you glad to be going back?
Yeah, I think so. Got to get the job done. Got to get it done fast. So the only way to do it is get in there.
Do you have any feelings of apprehension?
Yeah, very good.
I was just waiting around for what's happening. So I just went to go. So we just want to get them over and done.
What about the rightness of it all?
Well, it started off with British soil, Archie's barged in, and we're there to take them out.
By Friday night, the units were in position. D-Day would be Saturday, HR, midnight, 01. The Army's alphabet commands that all advances start on HR on D-Day. The last intelligence briefings warned it would be no warfare.
Instead of there being two separate brigades, two brigades has been reinforced. There's one Ross Guard and two Para. One WG will be in support of us, two Para in support of us. The timing, the exact timing, though, it should start rolling at about 1 and it should start rolling about 3. So I'm broad timing. The RAF lift is up on runway. Nice bombs all around it. So there are 13 aircraft, some of which are definitely footer, parked on the 18th around Stanley Airfield. There's also another report in. So they have managed to reinforce themselves with helicopters from the mainland. They've now got the capability to lift 2 companies to reinforce them. We know how they're going to reinforce themselves because on the straight to Mount Kent, because in fact, they left the tented area which contained a rock order to the respective area. And they are prepared to lose 50% of their support. So they can take this question.
On Saturday morning, when it was light enough to see, the wounded, both British and Argentine, were brought back from the battlefield. The worst casualties were suffered by the Parachute Regiment's 3rd Battalion, 2 Para. They cleared Mount Longdon against considerable opposition. They lost 23 men killed, another 47 wounded, the heaviest toll of any single victim. Many of the injuries were caused by mines which had been scattered from helicopters in the path of the British advance. There had also been highly accurate fire from Argentine snipers, well equipped with night sights that let them pin down the British troops in the dark. The strength of the resistance meant General Moore's plan was failing behind schedule. On top of Two Sisters, the Marines too had taken their objective, and were now the target for harassing fire from Argentine artillery. they should have been moving on. Instead, men coming close to the edge of their endurance had to spend another day, another night in the open, and the temperature was dropping. The delays were partly logistical, partly brought about by the time it had taken to overrun the Argentine machine gun post, dug in with a commanding arc of fire across the mountain slopes. On Sunday, as the Gurkhas moved up to the top of Two Sisters, ready for the next assault, another barrage of artillery came down on us. But with the high ground in British hands, the Argentine artillery had no stoppers. They had to fire randomly, groping for our positions. A tense afternoon, but less deadly than the return fire. From the mountaintop, the forward air observer was directing the Harriers in bombing runs against the Argentine defenders.
Roger, a bit plus of where we were aiming.
His position, peering over the top of the mountain, gave us our first view of Port Stanley.
Hey, bomb's gone. There's the bomb. Got it? Okay, switch on.
As he talked to the pilots, he guided them in with a laser indicator, which can place the bombs precisely on target.
Where was that? Oh, yes, got it. Just a little bit over from where I was aiming. An absolute duty, I would say. Probably where there is a defensive position.
What was it, 1,000
Yeah. Stand by. Roger, I will do that. Is it right on? Roger, I can now confirm that the bomb actually landed on the mark. Over.
We're now between the two gun lines, and there's a right-hand artillery duel going on between them. Unfortunately, this is the area, unfortunately for us, this is the area where the Gurkhas are gathering, and someone has clearly spotted them on the skyline. They're going to go over the top and down the other side to come in front of us at dark. But we've been spotted, and we've now been under continuous shelling for some time. That's the British firing back. And they can't hit back at the gun which is shooting at us, because we believe that's in the middle of Port Stanley, which is out of sound as far as our gunners are concerned. So we've got a very tense afternoon while we stay here and wait to move off under cover of darkness. battle made an eerie sight. The British progress marked only by the lines of tracer. Again, the resistance was tougher, the battle longer than expected. At dawn on Monday, the Scots Guards were still trying to fight their way to the top of Mount Tumbledown.
No, correct! There, 1.68 now, and you can do that.
On the Argentine positions, the artillery was falling like rain, drenching the mountains in debris and smoke. Once the Scots Guards had battled their way to the top of Tumbledown, the Gurkhas prepared to move through onto Sapper Hill, the last ridge almost on the outskirts of Stanley itself. The helicopters, snuggling against the contours of the land, couldn't keep the ammunition coming fast enough. The final bombardment brought the guns down to their last half-dozen shells. There was a naval bombardment too, but the task force had suffered such heavy damage that the ships couldn't provide the gunfire support that had been planned. But short of ammunition or not, the British shells kept falling remorselessly until the Argentine line broke. An Argentine cameraman showed what it looked like on the receiving end. The demoralized defenders were pulling back into the town. Officers and men were arguing. Discipline was breaking down. The British tactics were paying off. The appalling bombardment had been going on for weeks. The blockade, even partially enforced, had created a sense of isolation. The weather was turning nasty. There was nowhere else to retreat. The British were worried they might have to fight through the streets. Had the Argentines known that the British were on their last legs logistically, with the Navy almost unable to guarantee the supply line any longer, perhaps they would have fought on. Instead, suddenly it was all over. The guns fell silent. And we'll still have caps. Normal anti-air precautions. 8-2, Roger, out. Negotiations will start tonight. Although there appears to be a ceasefire at the moment, and the Argentinian forces in the Falklands have appeared to have surrendered, this does not necessarily mean that the forces in the mainland Argentine will necessarily stop fighting. Therefore, we will have normal CAP, that is air cover, combat air patrols, and we should take the normal precautions against being caught by surprise or whatever. There is a white flag flying over Stanley. Very marvellous. Shoha Jazle, Marty Jansa, 254 objectivement, Juan Foguera,
Now their major had to explain to some rather disappointed Gurkhas that their chance for fighting and regimental glory was over. The troops began the dangerous march into Stanley, weaving their way through the minefields which surrounded it. They followed carefully in the tracks of the engineers, the men who'd led every assault, showing the advanced troops the way through the minefields under fire. With the ceasefire still shaky, the order was given, advance, but fire only if fired upon.
No more open fire. No more open fire. No more open fire. We beat them. The fight strike, weapon. It's there. You guys got one of the smoke like, have you?
Keep your head together and call my name out loud. Soon I'll be knocking upon your door.
Two emotions competed: elation that it was all over, and a sense of being drained, almost deprived of purpose. The real enemy defeated, there was time for some regimental rivalry.
The race course. Hey, who's carry a flag up on here, guys? Who was the first to put up the flag? Too far. I put it up again. Too far the first thing again? That's right, again. How much did you beat the others? 2.5 hours. So how long have you been here now? What sort of opposition was there? Running opposition. Running. Run away. So you just came straight in, right? And told to stop. Right. How did you win in? No. Put up the two-power flag, the Union Jack, and then dragged back out by the Marines. Not feeling too good about that. What do you expect?
Argentine officers were allowed to keep sidearms to emphasize their authority, perhaps even to ensure their safety against their men.
It's possible in photography. Okay.
That Monday evening, June the 14th, General Moore helicoptered through a snowstorm to negotiate the Argentine surrender. Not just in Port Stanley, he insisted, but everywhere on the island.
We were particularly worried. The 14th Army, 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 the 14th Army
The surrender was unconditional in everything but name, because when the agreement was drawn up, General Menendez would not have the word unconditional in the final document. The prisoners were taken out to the squalor of the airfield and left amid the mud and debris to fend for themselves. They had only a few days' rations when they surrendered, just jerry-built shelter. There weren't even tents for the British. Suddenly, the danger of men dying needlessly through exposure seemed very real. It was several days before Argentina was stable enough to strike a deal to bring them home. The debris they left behind shocked a town which considers even blades of grass on the pavement untidy. The damage can be repaired, but it will take time and create disturbance. There'll also be a considerable garrison likely to outnumber the islanders for many years. The mark of war will never be erased from the island's life. Today, the physical strain of the war is being erased. In many ways, the island, like the conservatory at Government House, is looking much as it did before the war. But there are things that have changed. With all the planes and the people, the helicopters and the ships, it's a busier and a noisier place than it was before. And those who valued its calm and its simplicity find that unsettling. Progress of a kind, bought at a considerable price, has been pressed on a small community. The future, too, is less than settled. Argentina has been repulsed militarily, but it retains its claim on the islands, and the political problem, and indeed the risk of more military action, remains. This is where I ended my war, a very different place now to the bleak, bare outhouse, sandbagged and possibly booby-trapped, where I sat down a couple of days after the surrender to talk to General Moore about his feelings then.
I think my mood was elation above everything else. That the whole thing was over. That we'd done the job we'd come here to do. That the sacrifices that had been made by a lot of young men, and as you know, in those final 3 days we had 173 casualties, had all been worthwhile, because the freedom of the Falkland Islanders to live the life they wanted, under the government they wanted, was restored, and that's what we come for. So it was a great sense of elation in that sense.
Hey Roy, what are you going to do on your leave?
I'm going to sleep for 3 days.
Who will?
Me, I'm heading right for Hyde Park.
Why Hyde Park? I thought ducks were out of season.
Not the kind of birds I'm after.
How about you, Scott? I'm going to go anywhere where I don't have to look at aircraft. Group Captain Barrett wants to see you. He says it's urgent.
Scott, take care of the debriefing.
Right,
Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I wanna need somebody to lean on. Please swallow your pride if I have faith. You need to borrow. No one can feel those of your needs that you won't let show. Just call on me, brother, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Sometimes in our lives we all have pain, we all have sorrow, but if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Lean on me when you're not strong. I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it
special boat squadron had been watching the area in secret for weeks. They were amazed to find it only lightly defended.
En fin, cantidades.
We couldn't possibly defend every single spot where the British forces might have chosen to land. We didn't have enough resources. We had to defend the main target, Puerto Argentino.
Of course, the Argentinians are trained by the Americans or influenced by the Americans and believe that we were also. They've therefore thought if they were doing it, they would land in Stanley, and they assumed that because we had American influence, we would land as close to Stanley. We don't do it that way. And quite apart from anything else, it would have caused terrible and totally unforgivable casualties to civilians. And it's just not the British way of doing things. We prefer a rather more subtle approach to these matters.
Subo al supuesto observatorio, ya se había despejado un poco la bruma y no solamente estaba, ¿no es cierto?
I went up to the observation post and the mist was lifting. I could clearly see several frigates and transport ships, and there were dozens of helicopters flying about and landing craft coming towards us.
Terreno firme. Realmente era impactante.
And let me tell you, it was quite a sight. I had never seen such a fleet deployed in front of me. There were 5,000 troops about to land, and there I was with my 40 men.
When we hit the beach, in my particular boat, the ramp went down, and a naval order, which is part of their drills, I suppose, went out as troops out, and not a soul moved in the boat. Because, of course, when you move a paratrooper collectively, you don't shout out, you shout go. And this Royal Marine shouted again, troops out! Nothing happened. And then a quick-witted sergeant major shouted, go! And he shrugged off the boat.
The actual landing was a bit farcical in the sense that we all thought we were going to war, but there was no opposition. So you had 500-600 screaming paratroopers coming off a landing craft onto a beach. Never having done that sort of thing before, was so used to going to war or exercise by parachute that chaos reigned for some little time, where companies had to regroup and go off to do their own individual tasks. So if the landing had been opposed, I think we'd have been in a little bit of trouble in the early stages.
As his troops came ashore, Brigadier Julian Thompson feared an air attack on the ships at anchor in St. Carlos. He tried to alert London to the danger, without success.
I was very conscious of the fact that I was responsible for the lives of a large number of men. I sent a letter in which I said, we will of course carry out the landing because that's what we've been told to do, but you should know that if we are attacked by the air and the enemy are successful in their attack, we will take very, very heavy casualties indeed.
Politicians must never show military advisers that they are fearful of too many casualties. If you do that, you will put caution on the commanders right down the way, when caution probably may not be the right answer.
they got bloody good reactions and got me through it. And the Argentinians, if you imagine, were Harleys, the racing drivers, polo players, and what better sort of chap to have sitting in a fighter.
Radar altímetro graduado a 30 pies.
I set my altimeter at 30 feet, but I must have gone lower than that because the alarm went off several times. We were flying at 450 knots, and at that sort of height, well, it's quite a peculiar experience. I saw the masts of the frigate up ahead, and we lined up for the attack.
Desplegamos para el ataque.
They knew what we were doing.
Came to attack.
They all lined up, one after the other, and came up the stern. At that time, the captain ordered full speed, and we tried to manoeuvre, get a 20 millimeters to bear, but it seemed whichever way the captain turned the ship, there was an aircraft lined up on the stern, ready to come in.
El buque estaba reaccionando bien. El buque había incrementado su velocidad al máximo.
The ship was reacting well. I could see that it was moving at top speed, making for the open waters in the middle of the channel, trying to maneuver away from it. By this time, the ship was directly below me, so I banked over her, dropped the bombs, and escaped. I certainly felt that the skipper below me knew what he was doing. As I flew away, I heard my wingman say, "Well done, sir," which meant that at least one of my bombs had hit target.
De mi numeral, que decía, "Muy bien, señor." Eso me indicaba que de mis bombas algo habían dado bien.
The pilot, Mike Crabtree, just went very silent as we came down over the hill and flew through the smoke. And in the back, we couldn't see what was happening. We could smell the fire smoke. And then we came to the hover off the port quarter and looked out, and it's a sight I shall never forget. The fires of hell burning in that ship. She was at anchor, the gun pointing straight up at the sky, all the hydraulic power gone. The flight deck just smashed in and opened up with a can opener.
I remember waking up again. The dining hall was pitch black. I could see that my hand was injured, but although they had my anti-flash glove on, I could just see a mass of blood around the hand. And though no pain, no feeling at all, I thought, well, they can sew fingers back on these days, no problem. Had a quick feel all over the rest of my body. I had a large piece of formica sticking out the top of my head here. I pulled out, threw away. I then tried to get up, and I was unable to. I could get up on all fours, but I was unable to crawl out from whatever it was that was stopping me moving. Dreadful feeling. Dreadful. Getting out then. Getting out. I thought a little cheated the fact that I'd survived this far. We pray. And I could hear somebody moving around in the debris. And he came up to me and said, "Oh, you all right, mate? All right." And I said, "Okay, get this thing off my back." I couldn't even see the man, it was so dark. It's something what I was thinking about those days. At that time, my wife was 5 months pregnant at the time with our first child. And I wanted to get home. But like a miracle, the ship must have slewed round, but we got a breath of sweet tasting air. The hole in the side must have just caught some air and it wafted, and took a large lungful, and I started moving to the back end of the ship.
them all off. And then I sort of stood there on the bridge on my own. People getting off, all my men were off by then. And Yarmouth had put her stern onto our bow because we were sinking by this time. And I finally walked forward and stepped off on it. And it was very sad. And as we moved away from her, I know a lot of my chaps were in tears.
Cuando yo tiro mis bombas, no estoy diciendo.
When I bomb a ship, I'm not trying to kill anybody. I certainly wasn't trying to kill the ardent crew. What I'm trying to do is to put the ship out of action, hopefully without causing any casualties. That's how I felt throughout the war, and that's how all my colleagues felt.
¿Le diría usted entonces ahora de seguridad al Capitán West?
¿Al Capitán West?
Captain West? Well, I tell him that I regret sinking his ship, and I'm sorry that some of his men had to die. But I was doing my job just as he was doing his.
Mi tarea, así como él estaba cumpliendo la de él. One Takara that was flown by a chap called Major Tomba. In my first run-in, I shot at him and shot half his left aileron off and set his right engine on fire. So I was hitting all right, pulled away and thought he was going to drown. Not a bit of it.
En ese momento miro el ala de mi avión y veo.
I looked at my wing and saw a gaping hole. It looked a bit like a rose with open petals.
Una rosa con los pétalos abiertos.
Then I saw the two Harriers flying over me. My plane was shaking, but it was still flyable. So I flew on trying to get away.
Pero si los comandos reaccionaban, los motores funcionaban bien.
Well, this time I came in slower. I put my flaps down to bring my nose down so I could aim more easily, noticing me hiding my head up the straight quite carefully, but tracking nice and smoothly, and fired a long burst into him. Set the port engine on fire. Knocked bits off the rear fuselage, and the canopy shattered.
Y siento otra ráfaga, es decir, el avión sigue vibrando.
I felt another burst between my fuselage. The plane was still shaking, and then an engine caught fire. I could see I was beginning to lose control. The fire started spreading, and then suddenly I completely lost it. I had to eject. I felt very near the plane, about 40 or 50 meters away.
Y caímos prácticamente juntos.
And I thought, well, what a character. I mean, he should have got out after the first pass. He stayed with it until it just wouldn't fly. Got out just before it hit the ground. And apparently walked back to Goose Green. He was captured later. I had nothing but the highest respect for him. I mean, that was real bravery. shot him down and said, more trade, that means anything else for us to do? And the fellow said, wait. I said, what do you mean wait? He said, well, actually, we just had our operatives struck with gunfire, 30 minutes to camp. The man across the desk from me was off the top of his head, and I'd been hit in the arm, and I'm just collecting myself. And I felt awful. And I said, okay, sorry about that. And within 7 seconds, he was back online saying, right, we think we got trade for you. Not to the north.
Argentina's pilots sustained heavy losses. Only a few survived being shot down.
Personalmente pensaba que me iban a tirar al agua. Claro, porque esa era la...
I really thought they were going to throw me overboard. Well, I suppose that when you've just been captured, you tend to be a bit paranoid. They were taking off my survival suit and pointing at me with this rifle. But I also felt this great sense of relief. After all, I was alive.
Right, wrap the black kids around him and let's get him away. Come on.
Then I looked down and I noticed that my left leg was at a strange angle. It was dislocated. I was in terrible pain. So they injected me with morphine and painted an M on my forehead.
88, foreshadow the close stop. Leave that on him for a while. You may have to take.
He has got a complete fore and aft dislocation of his left knee, probably rupturing some of his thigh muscle. He had a dislocated left kneecap patella bone, which I've reduced the dislocation. We've now wrapped him up. He's got a nasty lot of bleeding around the joint.
Allí, antes de entrar, pienso que el Capitán Holly también.
They took me to hospital and this doctor told me, "Here you are just another patient." And the truth is, that's exactly how I felt from then on. Of course, I was in British hands. But I was never really treated like a prisoner. I was just another patient.
Although many Argentine planes were shot down, the task force remained vulnerable to air attack. On May the 25th, Atlantic Conveyor was hit by an Exocet missile.
When we drove up, there was a chaplain for Merchant Seamen's mission in Manchester, and sat in his car on the door, waiting for us on the road. And I saw his little blue badge on his lapel, and you automatically, I thought, something's wrong. So he said, "Can I speak to you in the house, please?" So I said, "Yes, can I?" So I said to the children, "Go in the kitchen, please." And sent them away in the kitchen. He took me in the lounge. He said, "I'm afraid I've some bad news for you." I said, "Just how bad?" He said, "I'm afraid it's the very worst." And then I couldn't get rid of the man. I just wanted him to go. And he said, "Children, make your mother a strong cup of tea." I can remember that. And they came and kept saying, "What's the matter?" I said, "Shh, quiet, I'll see you later." And then he went, and of course I told the children. I just said that the ship had been hit, and that the dad had been killed. And they sent me a duplicate map saying, "Frankfurt's buried at sea on Wednesday, the 26th of May." I got his plastic bag, and there was his pipe, his wristwatch, his St. Christopher, his wedding ring. I was very upset about him taking his wedding ring off because it worried me. It was very, very tight. He'd never taken it off. And I worried how they'd got it off his fingers. And he always used to wear a cap down below because he didn't just like to get oil in his hair. And his cap was in this plastic bag, but they were all wet, still as he'd come out of the sea.
British forces digging in at St. Carlos were held up by the loss of vital equipment on the Atlantic and back. But Julian Thompson was under pressure from London to get on with the war.
At the time, it appeared to me that back in England, there was a political need for a victory, so that we could be seen to be doing something, seen to be winning.
I think there were many of us who were worried initially that having got a beach at St. Carlos, we were going to get stuck there and not be able to break out. Because everybody has memories. There were memories at the time it took to break out of the beachhead in Normandy, and in
coming home with pride.
Wasn't a big area, just to be stuck in a very small
coming
area.
home with heads high.
In every way, not least on the diplomatic front.
Coming home from lands afar. Coming home to your eyes.
So a breakout is very important.
All those heroes who defend our flag will live on forever. All the heroes, both young and old, that soldier on to unknowns. From across this changing world, we live in the hope that you come back home. Coming home with pride. I'm coming home with pride. Coming home with heads high, high. Coming home from lands afar. Coming home to your eyes. Coming
I would know that
something.
I will carry you when you are wounded. I'll be your eyes when you can't see. And I would risk my life to try and save you. And you would do the same for me. When you can walk any further and your body feels too weak, I will carry you on my shoulders. I will find the strength that I need. I will carry you when you are wounded. I'll be your eyes when you can't see. And I would risk my life to try and save you. And you would do the same for me. I will carry you when you are wounded. I'll be your eyes when you can't see. And I would risk my life to try and save you. And you would do the same for me. When you are wounded, I'll be your eyes when you can't see. But I will risk my life to try and save you. You will do the same for me. The same for me.
Next to the prisoner of war cage, which was the sheep pens, was actually a pile of ammunition that had to be moved, and we had a rough idea that it was booby trapped. And we asked the Argentinian officers if they would move the ammunition for their own safety. So they detailed off some men to actually help move the ammunition, which was artillery shells and mortar ammunition. And they were moving it, and all of a sudden there was a bang, and there was a booby trap there. And the soldier involved, right next to the booby trap, was actually in a vacuum, flames and explosives. And the only thing that could be actually done for the soldier, because we couldn't get to him, was actually he was shot to take him out of his misery, because there was nothing humanly else done for him. And then I actually thought, I'm lucky. It was an eerie sort of silence, pitch dark, freezing. Then the mind just ran riot. I felt tears trickling down the side of my face when I thought about good blokes that actually died that day, and the fact that more were likely to die tomorrow, and the lump came in the throat. And I lay there for a good couple of hours actually going through the events of the day.
Were brought into St. Carlos. To avoid a long march, the Welsh Guards were moved aboard the ship Sir Galahad. It set sail for a place called Bluff Cove. Due to bad weather, the Sir Galahad was diverted away from Bluff Cove into a small inlet called Fitzroy. Major Ewan Southby Taylor was horrified by the ship's arrival. Crammed full of troops in broad daylight, it was in grave danger of Argentine air attack. He wanted the men moved urgently off the ship to the safety of the shore, just 200 yards away.
And I put it to the senior officer that I could find on the stern of the Galahad that my considered and professional opinion as a landing craft officer and somebody involved in amphibious warfare for almost all my career was that they should get off first and then wait. He was adamant that Bluff Cove was his destination and not Fitzroy. I was equally adamant that I was not going to take him to Bluff Cove in anything in daylight, and I was of course tragically proved correct only a few hours later when one of my craft was sunk. I pointed out that it was only 200 yards away. It would take maybe only 20 minutes to get all his men off. He said he wouldn't put his men in a mixed load of ammunition which we had from Sir Tristram, but we had the boats alongside to take the men off. I explained to him that this is war, we don't operate to peacetime restrictions during war, and that the men were in grave danger, and I think that was probably the most serious and most often made point that I put across. And eventually, in a fit of extreme anger, I told him that he was behaving extremely irresponsibly, and that I would not be held responsible for what happened to his men. And of course, tragically, 3 or 4 hours later, I proved absolutely correct.
And came back and caught most of my back, my legs. That's where I actually caught fire. And as I was trying to get out, I fell over. I saw it in my hands. It was red hot, the deck, as if the metal had been in a forge in a blacksmith. To me it was like as if I was seeing double. There was a hand, and the ripples, the skin of the hands had actually come off to the top here, and it was like a glove on top, and it was flapping about in both hands.
When I came round, I don't know how long, I couldn't have been out that long anyway, so all I could feel was a burning sensation on the lower part of my left leg, so I didn't think nothing of it, so I automatically tried to stand up, not thinking nothing of it. And I remember looking at my left hand, because that's what I was more worried about, because it melted. And when I stood up, my leg had gone. There was just little bits left of it.
As I was looking around, you could see other people that were injured, probably your mates, whatever, but you couldn't recognise them because of the blackness of the face, the hair burnt. It had gone all black and it started bubbling and sort of scabbing up, and it smelled awful.
I was bleeding from the head, but there was nothing desperately wrong with me. And I knew where the door was, and I started thinking about getting myself out. And I tried to get up onto my knees, and the thickness of the smoke, which was layered, stopped me breathing straight away. So I had to go back down onto the floor. Unfortunately, I was in somebody else's remains at that time. But I felt it, I couldn't see it. So I started making my way towards the exit, where I knew it was. And a chap from the back of the room, very, very muffled because of the smoke and the darkness, he started screaming that he'd lost his leg. And that was the biggest deciding point in my life. Whether or not I was going to go and help him get out. Nobody would have ever known because it was just him and me left alive in the room. And I decided I wanted to be a hero. So I went back for him and we were calling to each other through the darkness. And I was still desperately trying to talk myself into turning around and making my way to the exit. Anyway, I found Kevin Woodford by accident. I must have trodden on the stump of his leg, because the next thing I know, a fist came out of the darkness and clobbered me one. And Kevin was very, very obviously hysterical. I couldn't find my morphine or his morphine. Everything was confused for me. We carried the morphine around our necks, so it's called omnipod. And he was a big man, and the only thing I could do was to put my arms underneath his arms and start dragging him along the floor in the direction of where I knew the exit was. Well, all the armchairs and settees had turned into barricades, and as he was so heavy I couldn't lift him and I couldn't breathe as well because of the smoke, I was having to bulldoze my way through the barricades, and I very quickly lost all my strength. I was just losing control completely. I got him about 3/4 of the way down the room when I whispered to him that I had to leave him.
When the helicopter landed, I was in a stretcher and I was supporting my left leg in the air. And obviously, there was a lot of bits hanging off it, so I suppose it looked very horrific. When they actually got me off the helicopter, I looked around, there was a film crew there, and they seemed to jump at me. So I was a bit annoyed at that. I don't know whether I swore at them or told them, go away or whatever. And they were filming me, probably because they'd seen the state of my leg.
Casualties were airlifted to the British hospital ship Uganda. Chris White, suffering from shock and convinced he'd left a man below deck to die, tried to take his own life.
I noticed that they hadn't taken my Omnipod, my morphine ampule off of me, which was affixed to my dog tags around my neck. So I administered the morphine to myself, into my chest, aiming for the heart. And I just moved my shirt over to one side and punched it in. But yeah, obviously the needle wasn't deep enough. And I was spaced out for a while. A little while after that, the padre came down. He'd heard about this particular person who kept on trying to do these silly things. And he'd also been talking to a young man up in intensive care who had had his leg taken off by the action on the Galahad. And he put two and two together, and he came down and took me to Kevin Woodford. And
I couldn't recognise Kevin because I said when I first met him in the dark. We took one look at each other, burst into tears, and that was it. It was incredible feeling.
All the burns victims were treated together in a converted officers' mess on board Uganda.
Stench of burning. And quite close by to the mess, there was a very tiny galley. It was quite like somebody had burnt toast. And you just sort of open the doors, and there was about 40 beds of black faces. And it was a feeling of horror, I suppose, and you just wanted to close the doors and turn away and run. And then you thought, God, you've got to hide this horror you have on your face. And you just walked in and tried to smile and get on with your job. They had very little hair, no eyelashes, no eyebrows. Their hands, at the time, they've been put into what they call flamazine bags, which are a bag that go over the hand with a special cream that they use for very bad burns. You just wanted to go back to your room and cry your eyes out because you felt so desperately sorry for these people.
I could have got those men off in 20 minutes. No question of that whatsoever. And anybody with any professional sense would have taken the advice of the on-the-spot expert, regardless of rank. But unfortunately, I was not wearing the rank of a lieutenant colonel, who, as far as I can make out, was the only man who was prepared to listen to him. And I think probably, in my career, that was the most angry I have ever been, although I was not directly involved. It was certainly the only time in my career that I have felt almost shame at being involved in something that has gone wrong. And although I blame myself partly for not insisting with even more vigour that the men were brought ashore, I feel that I am not actually to blame for the deaths of those men. And it gets through to me even now after 6 years, 5 years.
The distance from St. Carlos to Stanley is 60 miles. British troops had to walk the whole way. This yomp was carried out in extremely harsh conditions, freezing temperatures, snow and driving rain.
Fresh water you couldn't get, so obviously you take what you can at the ground. And, we would sort of stamp onto the peat, big holes, until we got a puddle, because it was always sod on the ground. Scoop water in a mug, put some sterilising tablets in, and this water was absolutely black, but I mean you drank it. No matter how many tabs you use, sterilising tablets, it's going to end up taking it out on you. Now, myself personally, I never had any underpants on by the time we got to Stanley, and there's quite a few guys like that, because having a shit. One of the lads in our troop just undone his zip and just cut through his underpants and just tossed them away and just carried on walking. I mean, there's nothing else he could do. I mean, the doc, he just said, the only thing you can do, because you're losing body fluid, is to just drink lots of water. Of course, we're drinking that crap again.
As the British troops closed in, the Argentine conscripts could only wait. Dug in on the mountains around Stanley, they prepared for the final battle.
Those last days we talked about was how many we got. 5, 20. We felt this impotence, waiting for death, but there was nothing we could do about it. So you look back at what you've done in your life. And you were 19. There's not much we can do.
For the British too, there was an anxious wait. Troops had to sit it out until the order to attack came.
Nothing happened, and the tension was pretty sort of electric, and we were all moving in extended line, and still nothing happened, and we were just waiting.
And after a while, you know, you could almost feel almost a sense of relief. People were beginning to think, well, they've bugged out, they're not here anymore. And just as we were beginning to feel that, there was suddenly, literally, the horizon just lit up in a sea of white flashes. That initial firefight was quite incredible. It was like being at the wrong end of a machine gun range. And the noise was incredible. And I think we were fairly stunned for a minute. You really had the feeling that if you raised your hand, you know, slightly in the air, it would be shot off.
Cayó una granada y le pegó al pibete, se levantó en el aire.
The grenade exploded near us, and we saw the soldier up in the air, shouting, screaming, explosions, bullets flying, complete chaos. Anyway, he stood up and shouted, "I'm hit, I'm hit."
Me dieron.
He was swearing and screaming at the top of his voice, but he could still walk. He turned to me and said, "Here, take my rifle." He handed over his ammunition to another soldier, and then he started shouting, "I'm leaving, I'm leaving." I suppose he meant it was over for him, that he'd had enough. This was all happening with the British troops right in front of us, very close by. It was all so crazy. It's hard to explain that. Anyway, he started walking away and they threw a phosphorus grenade at him. And he actually caught fire and started screaming. It was like a human torch. What really bothered us was that he was lighting up our position, so that the enemy could hear. So we started waving him away. At that point, we didn't care whether he lived or died.
Well, you can always tell you're close to someone when they've been hit, because you hear the crack of the bullet, but you also hear a sort of horrible whack, and the bullet hits sort of solid flesh and bone, and it's pretty unpleasant. Extraordinary noise, I suppose. Very grim, and you've never heard that sort of before, you just instinctively know exactly what's happened. And one of my soldiers there, a night sight, suddenly saw one of them. And we heard the crack, and we heard the thump as it hit the Argentinian. It was a moment of silence, and it was the most terrible screaming from this Argentinian. He was screaming for his mother. And silence, both sides, both of us listened to it. And I'm sure we, in a way, were just as horrified as the Argentinians. It really was an awful noise. It went on and on and on.
Terminé de cargar y me levanté. Cuando me levanté,
I finished loading, and when I stood up, there was a British soldier right in front of me. By this time, they were all over us. And then he shot me. He shot me in the head. I felt as though I was falling backwards in slow motion. They must have thought I was dead. They just led me there. But in fact, the bullet hadn't hit the skull. It ran down my helmet and hit me in the back of the neck. And I thought, my God, I'm alive. I turned around, I don't know how, and started crawling back on all fours. I tried to stand up, but I couldn't. I reached the edge of the mountain, and I remember seeing the whole valley beneath me. It was like a vision of hell. The most terrifying sight I've ever seen. Explosions, fires, machine guns rattling, soldiers yelling and screaming. An inferno.
bomba, fuego, ametralladora, grito.
I felt everything spinning around me. And when I tried to stand up, I fell down the slope.
Cuando me paré, me caí. Y a mí ya me daban por muerto. Cuando me llevaron...
They all thought I was dead. I was conscious, but I just couldn't move a single muscle. So they rolled me up in this blanket and put me on top of this pile of bodies.
Ya, los muertos. ¿Ustedes qué tirado ahí?
Later, a sergeant came along, jotting down the names of the dead soldiers. He was crying. such complete chaos, and he started talking to me, and I must have blinked, because suddenly he realized that I was still alive.
As we started going up the mountain and the enemy were just melting before us, we just went faster and faster until we got to the top. And in a way, we almost couldn't believe that we'd got to the top. And there, just 4 kilometres away or something, and clearly in view was Stanley. We could see the lights, and I think for a second or two we just sort of stood there looking at this with euphoria. You know, we'd done it. And of course that was fatal because at that moment, from 200 metres away, an Argentinian automatic weapon of some sort and several other weapons opened up on us. And in that initial sort of burst, which was almost a sort of ambush really, 3 of us were hit. I saw the person in front of me just spin round, sort of pirouette round. He'd been hit in the hand, and the force just sort of literally knocked him spinning like a top. And there was a crack behind me, and someone had been hit behind me. And it all seemed to be in slow motion. Well, in fact, it was just my brain thinking rather faster. But as I turned to run into the nearest cover myself, I suddenly felt something like enormous sort of hammer blows on my legs. And the tracer from the round had like sort of, you know, sort of scarlet rods all around me. And I noticed that my right leg especially, both my legs, but especially my right leg, was very sort of stiff already. And there was sort of brief burning sensation through the muscle on my right arm. I put my right hand down to touch my leg, and 2 of my fingers went in up to the knuckle. And at that point I realised I had actually been hit. The stretcher bearers found it very difficult to get into us. Eventually they did, and they started carrying us down. And then the next thing I knew was that I was lying a short distance from my stretcher, and there was complete silence. I never heard the blast or anything. Whether I'd been knocked unconscious for a short time, I don't know. I turned round, and the stretcher bearers basically were in pieces. At least one of them was completely blown to pieces. It really was wretched. I just couldn't believe it.
As the British moved on towards Stanley, Argentine dead were left scattered across the battlefield. Burying them was a gruesome task.
The first guy I came across, he had all of this part of his face here was totally missing, and he had upper chest wound, and I took his dog tags out, and while I was doing it I was talking all the time. I was going, okay, right, I'm just going to undo his dog tags, and right, yeah, here they come, yeah. Not because I was trying to tell the lads what I was doing, obviously I was just trying to stop myself from thinking about this guy. Because, you know, you'd find a wallet on him, and there'd be a picture in there of them with their wife and kids. And I was looking at him and I thought, well, you know, fucking hell, you know, that could have been me lying there. Everybody we came across was all twisted. You could see the agony, you know, that these guys had been in when they died. I mean, their legs were all twisted, their arms. And then we found an Argentine officer. He'd been injured, he had a belly wound. I can't remember who found him. And they called me over, said, oh, come on over here, Lou, and have a look at this guy here. And went over, and he was sort of, he started speaking to me in English. And he was telling me, you know, that he didn't know why he was, you know, why we were fighting either. I feel bad about the bodies. You know, the state of them and everything, and you know, the way we sort of just toss them into a hole. Yeah, they were just kids. The guy that was injured,
know, I wish Nate that he'd never spoken English, like, you know, and he died. Can you stop a minute? It took me 4 years to cry about a few dead people. Because obviously you can't cry then. You know, you've got a job to do and you do it. I still feel, even now I feel, you know, why I'm crying, or what. I'm afraid I just don't see him as enemy. You know?
Entonces hay una toma de conciencia de que ya
we realized that it was pointless to carry on. We had no more cards to play.
reducida apenas a 10
Our artillery was down to 10 or 12 guns.
apoyo aéreo directo.
We had no air support.
Los ingleses
The British were just off our shores shelling us.
para reforzar sus propios fuegos.
Our men were exhausted. They had fought hard and had lost much of their equipment. If we'd carried on, we would have just been wasting lives. That is the conclusion I reached. So then I discussed it with the High Command before accepting the British offer of a ceasefire and the start of negotiations.
Resolví aceptar el cese del fuego ofrecido por los ingleses y más tarde se produjeron las conversaciones correspondientes.
Yo sentí una congoja muy grande. Para mí era...
It really hurt. We had been defeated and I felt defeated. What really stuck in my mind was seeing the Union Jack flying after the surrender. That was quite a blow. I was so angry and frustrated that I broke down in tears. I remember thinking about all I had been through. The hunger and the cold, loneliness, and the death of so many of my friends. And after all that, there was the British flag flying over us. It was unbearable.
As I walked around the corner and actually Stanley came into view, I thought, bloody hell, was it all worth it? It was smelly, dirty, and it just wasn't my idea of what Stanley was going to be.
The whole place was chaotic, with guns and ammunition lying about, the odd dead body, every other building seemed a red cross on it, and there was the smell, which is unmistakable, of death. And we eventually went to the top floor of a little house which we requisitioned, which we shared with one of the companies of 2 Para. And during the night we turned on one of our radios, the BBC World Service, and we heard about the surrender from the BBC 8,000 miles away, which was being conducted in a building 800 yards from where I was sitting, and we all felt the most enormous sense of relief. And my main feeling was that no more young men were going to have to die. It was not like winning a football match or anything like that. It was just an enormous sense of relief that it was over and we could all go home.
We sailed in early that morning. Everywhere that you looked, the small boats packed with people to cheer us in. And it was a brilliant feeling, really, because, you know, it did make it then seem worthwhile.
Bitter towards the people that were coming back, not as individuals, just because they'd all come back and Frank hadn't.
Great, wonderful, you're wonderful.
Though on the surface there seemed to be a lot of razzmatazz, the homecoming in many aspects was fairly subdued as a personal experience for many of us. There was a feeling that we didn't want to leave the environment in which we had spent so long among our own comrades, amongst our friends, people we knew, and go into a world which was full of people who didn't know what we'd gone through, who were perhaps putting the wrong connotation on what had happened, who were perhaps reveling in the fact of victory for the wrong reasons. And I actually, in some ways, felt somewhat reluctant to walk down the brow of that ship in amongst it all.
Returning to Buenos Aires, conscripts found that life seemed to go on much the same as before the war.
Entonces fuimos a un boliche, como le decimos nosotros, a una boate.
I remember we went out to this bar and I walked in and I thought, well, this can't be a very happy place after all that's been going on. I went out to the bar and I ordered a beer. When I looked around me, the place was full of happy faces. Everyone was having a good time, celebrating as though we'd just won the World Cup. You'd think that nothing had happened in Argentina.
No había pasado nada, acá en la Argentina nunca pasó nada. Entonces uno se pregunta.
And I asked myself, how many fathers did I kill? What was the point? Did I do all this for my country? What's my country? Are you my country? All those of you laughing and dancing and having a good time while we suffer? It's not resentment. I'm not asking for any reward. All I'm saying is, look, we risked our lives at 19. Many didn't come back. But we did. What are we supposed to do now?
Estamos acá y ahora qué hacemos.
I asked to go down to the South Sea and drive along the seafront before we finally returned to our home. As I drove along the front there, people were having their summer holidays. They were eating their ice creams, they were sitting in their deck chairs, and they were generally passing the time of life, the time of day, enjoying themselves. And I felt as if I wanted to pick them up and shake them and say, look, there is a war going on, people are getting killed. And somehow I felt for them that the war was something that happened at 8 o'clock in the morning when they picked up their newspapers or switched on the radio, or at 9 o'clock at night when the TV news came on.
I didn't go home for the first sort of few days. I didn't like all the flag waving.
stupid, like, did you kill anybody, you know? Or they'd be slapping you on the back and buying the pints, and you'd go along with it, but yeah, I was down there and all that lot. But you never really tell them what it was like, you just tell them, well, basically what as much as the British public do now. I don't know any better. The whole affair is one of tragedy. War is a messy, dirty, miserable business. And, we should never, ever allow ourselves to have war.
We, the British people, are proud of what has been done. Proud of these heroic pages in our island story. Proud to be here today to salute the task force. Proud to be British.
We went to fight because they had invaded British territory. And it's really all a question of pride. And I think Britain had to have that pride in herself. Or as a nation we would have just been, what now? They had to do it. Oh, the price that my family paid. No one will ever know exactly what price we paid. Perhaps it was worth it for Britain's sake.